last night, Jeanmar Gomez moved up the ladder. He tied Ricky Bo for single saves, 34. Not number one on the list, but in that top 10 range there. But I find it interesting, Ricky, what you were talking about afterwards is, is he really going to be the long-term closer? They seem like they got a lot of options for guys on this team. I felt that was, it kind of perked my ears up a little bit with some of these young power arms they have in the back of that bullpen.
Yeah, I'll tell you this much. I like Ramos. I think that guy's got power stuff. He's got good breaking stuff. He's got a good mentality to be a closer type. Look, I'm not taking Gomez out of the closer's role at this point. I'm just saying in the long term, are the Phillies going to want to pay a guy? Because, you know what, it's not as though this is his first year. I think people look at him because he's, more or less new to the Phillies organization. It's his first year. It's not. But, I mean, look, Gomez has done a great job. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's had a really good year, a very surprising year. And that's the reason why I bring up other guys, because it was a surprising year. And can you continue to do this for years in the future? That's the question mark. I mean, you also have Hector Neris, who has been ridiculously good since the All-Star break. So, I mean, there are guys that have some arms that are young that could possibly be a long-term closer for the Phillies.
Yeah, and that's something. I mean, I guess Gomez is a guy they didn't even think he was going to be the closer this year, right? I mean, he wasn't the guy they had penciled in at the beginning of this year. He has surprised this year, but
honestly, I think he was like the third or fourth choice.
Right. Yeah, it was like two guys had the chance the first week and both blew saves, and it was like, all right, you're next.
Well, that's exactly that's the type of season we were going into. I think, the one thing about relievers, either you start off hot or you start off cold. There's really no in-between per reliever, and it's rough on a reliever to go out there and give up a bunch of runs in your first couple outings, because what you start to feel like is there's a huge hill to climb already. And you're only, a couple games in, and you're like, wow, something's wrong with me already, which is usually not the case. It's just being a little bit behind of where you should be at the beginning of the year. But you know what? Gomez stepped in, and I'll tell you this much. I thought his first 20 saves have been a lot more simple than his last 14. I will tell you that much. I think he has struggled at times now. He's given up runs in a good amount of innings at this point, and those one-run saves aren't guaranteed anymore.
Hey, Ricky, it's Pete Thompson. I know I watched a game with you earlier this year when. Just some guy, Pete Thompson. I watched a game with you earlier this year when Syndergaard was lighting it up, so I know speed grabs your attention. And when I watched Ramos last night, he was lighting it up on the gun. Has he been not only a pleasant surprise, but a guy that the Phillies could count on in the future? 23 years old. I
definitely think so. I mean, he's got some lightning in that arm, that's for sure. And, being a 1-2 inning guy, that's good. You let it go a little bit, and it doesn't seem like he gets rattled too much. I think he had the one bad outing, and I want to say it was in Colorado. And I give free passes to Colorado because that place is a joke. But besides that, I mean, he's got real good breaking stuff. He's got throws like an 82-mile-an-hour curveball. That's hard. I mean, the guy's got good stuff. And, 97, 98 miles an hour last night, that was bringing. And then I just like his mentality. It's, I'm going to come after you. Here we go. All right, now you're on my fastball. Here's the curveball. Go sit down. That's the kind of guy that you like to see late in the ballgame.
Hey, Ricky, you closed in this league, and obviously, as we mentioned, 34 saves, multiple years for the Phillies. What is the innate thing about being a closer that different? Like, okay, Velasquez is a guy that has a power arm, could be a back end of the bullpen guy, but he's a starter. What do teams look for when they are looking for that guy that can close?
I think it's a mentality. I think it's a guy that wants to be in a game every night. It's a guy who can forget what happened the night before in the next game. Because, let's face it, you go out there, you blow a save, you feel like garbage. I don't care who you are. There's not a closer out there in the world that's going to tell you, oh, yeah, I'm okay. Because you're ticked off. There's no doubt about it. But you have to have that short-lived. It's got to be, once the game's over, you beat yourself up for an hour and then it's over, and that's the way it should be. Now, for me, and I'm going to say this because this is a strange scenario. I know a lot of relievers, and I've pitched with a lot of guys that would never say this. I thought closing was easier than setting up. And my reason being is that closing, you're warming up once, and then you're in the game. As a setup guy, you're warming up 2-3 times. I mean, I know it's a little different now, but that used to be it for the most part. And I hated when I had to get up 2-3 times in a game and then finally go in. I would rather get that one warm-up in, get in that game, have your adrenaline stay with you, and go fire away for 3 outs and the ball game's over. And let's face it, the closer's role from when I did it to now is a little different. It's 1 inning now. It's strictly 1 inning, unless it's a playoff-impacted game. So, I mean, the role to me is get 3 outs and we're done. Let's go home. Let's go get some dinner and we're good. But I just always found it, mentally, I found it easier to close than I did to set up.
Former Phillies closer Ricky Bottalico with us. You can watch him on Phillies pre and post on Comcast Sports. And Ricky and Jared Eickoff last night obviously called on in the different role. He's the starter and coming out to stop the bleeding, if you will, last night. He does that with 6 solid innings, but they pulled him after 71 pitches. Were you surprised that they pulled him at that point, or did that make sense to you?
You know, the 6th inning, when you watched the 6th inning last night, I thought he struggled a little bit. And if you look at his numbers, as he gets later on in the ballgame the 3rd time around, the batters seem to get a better read on him. So I wasn't very surprised about it. As a matter of fact, I almost thought that if it kept continuing in the 6th, he wasn't going to make it out of there. But he bared down, he got out of that. Now, you know, with the way Eickoff was pitching, I didn't have a problem if they put him back out there in the 7th, but don't forget, those 2 games in Chicago were sandwiched with days off. So you had a fresh bullpen. You were confident that you could use those guys. If there was trouble and somehow it goes into extra innings, you got plenty of help out there. So I think Pete McCannon did the smart thing. He got him it was a confidence game. It's 2 runs, 6 innings. That's a nice little ball game. Get him out of there. Let's just finish it up for him. I don't have any problem with what was done last night. And the way these young pitchers are going down like flies, I am not surprised at all.
Ricky, we're almost to September, which means those September call-ups. Who are a couple of guys that you want to see come up here and get a shot in the final month?
I mean, I think I'll go with everybody else's pick in the Nick Williams guy in AAA. But the one big problem that the Phillies do have with bringing these guys up right now is that they are in the playoffs. I mean, you look down in AAA, you look in AA, those 2 teams are going to the playoffs. So you don't want to just break up their team just to break it up and just to get a guy a look at the big league level. What you might do is wait for their season to end. But, I mean, that's where all of the Phillies prospects are right now, at least the guys that are major league ready. That's where they sit. And I don't think the Phillies are going to break that up, because I look at that situation down there as that they are learning to win. And if they could go on and win a championship, there is pressure down there also. So, I mean, I know it's a starting point, but regardless of that situation, go in there, play some playoff games, get that under your belt. It's just more experience. I think it's a good thing for those guys down there. I'd love to see Nick Williams get up to the big league. I think most people would say this too, and I'm probably in the wrong saying this, but I'd love to see Hoskins and Cousins come up.
Bash Brothers.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I wonder, because Ricky,
the new Bash Brothers.
The spring training next year should be really intriguing. You wonder if those guys have a shot to make the team out of Clearwater next year.
Well, spring training, the way I look at it, and you might disagree with me a little bit on the outfield. I think if Odubel Herrera is still there, he's got somewhat of a job. But when you look at what's going on with the Phillies right now, he's not playing against left-handed pitchers because his average is so bad against lefties throughout the season. Now, you look at the outfield then, you have Aaron Altair, who I believe will be a starter next year, and I believe he's probably going to be in center field next year to start the season. So that's one definitive guy. I think Tommy Joseph will start at first base. I think Michael Franco at third. Other than that, it's going to be a war of battles everywhere for position. I think that is the best thing in spring training. You're bringing a whole group of guys in, and they know who's going to be in the battles. There's no secret. There's no secret that these guys on the team right now do not have jobs next year at this point. Obviously the next month of the season is going to tell a lot. to say who stays, who goes, who's not, who's going to be invited to spring training, who's not. But I will say this much: you look at second base. If J.P. Crawford is ready, there's your battle at shortstop with Galvis. Then if that happens and J.P.'s there, then you have a battle at second base with Hernandez and Galvis. And then who knows in the outfield positions who they're going to bring in, or if it's going to be, is it going to be a Hoskins? Is it going to be a Nick Williams? There's going to be people vying for jobs all spring long, and I think that's a good thing for a team that's trying to grow up quickly.
Ricky Bottalico is with us, Phillies pre and post on Comcast Sportsnet. Saw him the other night with the one, the only Michael Barkan. And, of course, I want to know about the Twizzlers, Ricky. What was the deal with the Twizzler bet? Because that was a big to-do.
You know what, the Twizzlers thing, I went in to get a pack of Twizzlers a couple weeks ago. The nibs things, the little ones. And I
like those better, yes.
There was one in there, and I needed to find some change because the machine wasn't taking dollars. So I go and find change, and the Twizzlers were gone. It turned out that one of our cameramen got it. It got the last one. So I was kind of ribbing on them a little bit. So they kind of got me back the other night with the Twizzlers at the end of the show, and Michael was dangling them at me as Michael likes to play
as Michael is wont to do. Yes.
The trials and tribulations of a 162-game season.
It's funny because Michael comes off as a very serious individual, like on a lot of shows, but he's got a side of him that just makes you laugh because of it, and you have to catch it because he's very sarcastic with certain things that he says. And, I mean, I don't laugh a lot on the show, and he was actually making me laugh a little bit.
Well, Ricky Bo, we always appreciate a couple minutes here, and I do agree with you on spring training. I think next year's spring training is going to be filled with competition and position battles. It'll be, I said next year, 2017 spring training, probably the most anticipated one since, 12, 11, sometime around there where Howard and Utley got hurt?
Yeah, it has to be right now. I mean, there's so many positions. There's so many jobs that are open. It's going to be interesting to see what the team does in free agency, too, because I really believe they got to add not just one, but I think two veteran starters on this team.
And nibs ahead of Twizzlers. I'm with Ricky in that camp as well.
Everybody that's going with the smaller, like you
go
have
for
the
nibs.
peanut butter cups, now you have the small ones. Everyone's going with the small stuff.
I didn't even know this. This is great.
Comcast Sportsnet, Philadelphia, pre and post. Off tonight, Phillies and Mets tomorrow. Thanks, Ricky.
All right, take it easy, guys.